When I walked into the school gates on Monday, at least 10 paces behind Kylie, no one turned to look at us. No one pointed, no one whispered behind their hand, or worse still, shouted, "There they are." Nothing. Everyone just went about their business, hanging outside the canteen, having a gossip around the lockers, the usual stuff. Even Rory, Mr. Motormouth, only said, "You right?" "Yeah," I answered. I felt a bit hot and bothered when I noticed Chrissy walking towards me. I grabbed my folder and headed up the stairs. Behind me, I could hear her heels clacking faster and faster as she tried to catch up with me. "Tom," she called. "Tom, wait up." I turned around. "Chrissy?" I pretended. "Oh, g'day. Hi. I, tried..." She was breathless. "I tried to find you, Her voice dropped to a whisper. "On Friday Arvo." "Yeah. Ta. You okay?" "Yeah, no worries." My voice sounded dull as, but what did you think I was going to say? "Okay." She shrugged and began to chew her lips. I wanted to reach out and touch them. "Well, I guess I'll see you then." "Yep." She turned left and I kept going. Now I was breathless and could feel my heart going 1,000 k's an hour, but it wasn't because of the stairs. After school, the fellas and I went down to Burger King to fuel up on some fries. It was freezing outside. It was the sort of cold where you couldn't feel the tip of your nose and there was no way to get your hands warm. We sat around stuffing our faces, nodding and grinning at each other as we started to defrost. A couple of times one of them asked something about back home, but it wasn't like we suddenly started talking about it. "How long's he in jail?" Wiseman asked me. 3 years. "So, what, that's 2.5 to go?" Rory asked. "About that," I replied. "How about your cousin, Jimmy? He's still got 4 to go." Jimmy counted. "I haven't seen him for a while." "What's it like?" Wiseman asked. "I've never been to a jail." "Boring," Jimmy answered. "A lot of waiting around." "Yeah," Jimmy had pretty much summed it up. I'd be a liar if I said an enormous weight hadn't lifted off my shoulders. It had. I felt lighter. I no longer had the burden of carrying a secret. And the consequences, well, there were none. The conversation drifted off to the footy camp, and that seemed to hold more interest for them than what had happened to me and my family. Kylie and I still weren't speaking to each other. Even though I felt okay, I wasn't going to let her know that. In some ways, a part of me almost admired her guts, but she shouldn't have done what she did, especially the way she did it. Hadn't we all been hurt enough by the random acts of others? Kylie was spending even more time at Brianna's, and when she was home, she walked around like she had a carrot stuck up her ass. There wasn't really anyone to tell her what she could and couldn't do anyway. Dad was busy down at the sheds working or being assistant coach. Mum was still on the go-slow, trying to come to terms with life. That just left Gran, and Kylie couldn't give a toss about a thing Gran had to say. Dad spent most evenings in the bedroom with Mum. 6 p.m. still seemed to be the latest she could stay up, but I kept telling myself that anything was an improvement. Brendan mostly hung down at his place or was out, so that just left Gran and me. At least she liked watching the footy show. We'd have a good laugh over that. Sometimes she wasn't too bad. "Do you still wish you had the chooks, Gran?" I asked as I was drying the dishes with her. "You liked your chooks?" "They were like my friends," she answered. "I still remember the day little Cain and Abel hatched out of their shells." "Why did you call them that?" "Well, I didn't intend to call them Cain and Abel," she told me. "I mean, their mother was Agnes and no doubt their father Paul. It didn't make any sense to call them Cain and Abel, did it?" "Yeah, but Gran, this is what had fascinated me as a kid. Did you think they were going to be roosters?" I couldn't tell. I wasn't much good at that. "So you just gave them boys' names?" "It was more the way they behaved together. They seemed like brothers." "But they were sisters, Gran." "I know, but I didn't know that when I named them. They were only chicks, Tom, but they reminded me of Cain and Abel." "How?" "Cain was always bossing Abel around, pecking and eating all the food. Very indulgent, I would say. Cain only ever thought about Cain." "Right." She was talking about them like they were real people. "Cain was the selfish brother, and Abel just tried to get along with everyone, minded his own business, didn't cause trouble." I felt the laugh blowing out my cheeks. "It's not funny, Tom. Cain could be a very nasty hen." She shook her head. "You know Cain murdered Abel." "What?" Gran nodded. "When? I'd never heard that before. I can't believe I..." "In the Bible story, Tom, not in my chook pen." She clicked her tongue as she squeezed out the dishcloth. "What do they teach you these days?" "Why don't you get more chooks?" "Your grandpa bulldozed over the chook pen when he built the sheds, so where would I put them?" "Dunno. In the garden somewhere?" "Tom, well, why not?" She looked at me like I was a half-wit. "I think I have enough on my plate." I'd hoped, prayed almost, that Finn had give up on the idea of having a party at the rehab centre, but he didn't. So Auntie Kath was busy organising a barbie for the Saturday. The whole family was talking about Finn's birthday. This time it was Daniel's birthday that had passed by without a fuss. Kylie tried to scam Becky coming, but Gran told her it was an occasion for Finn, not an occasion to catch up with friends from Mum Billy. Gran was lucky she didn't get her head bitten off. Me? I didn't need the extra grief of seeing old faces from the Billy. Just seeing Finn in his wheelchair was going to be enough. The Friday night before Finn's party, Kylie stayed home for a change and I went out. The good thing about Coghill was that it had a huge cinema. It even had a theatre with the armchairs you could lie down in, not that I could afford those tickets. Rory, Jimmy, Wiseman and I went and saw the new Vin Diesel movie. They were off to a party afterwards. I told them straight I couldn't go. It was my cousin's birthday tomorrow and we'd be leaving at Sparrow's Fart, probably about the time they'd be getting home. No worries, and that'll be heavy, was all they really said, and we left it at that. They never pushed me into talking about it, not even Rory, and I respected them for it. Chrissy was at the movies with this Davin bloke, Chris Davin, the same bloke I'd seen her wave at in church. She's a hot bit of gear, that Chrissy, Wiseman whispered to me as we lined up for tickets. She hadn't seen me, so I could watch her eat her choc top without being busted. He's the dude I was telling you about at footy camp, Rory said as we wandered into our movie. Big Davin. What's he like? I mumbled, shoving a mouthful of popcorn down my gob. Okay. He's a big chick man, Wiseman said. One of those lucky buggers. Gets whoever he wants. Then, next please. You know the type. Know it well, I nodded. When I got home from the movies, Kylie was sitting on my bed. What do you think you're doing in here? I grunted. Nothing. Well, why don't you do nothing in your own room? I'm sorry, Tom. Okay? Bit late for that. I'm still sorry. She had no intention of leaving. Suddenly I wanted to hear what she had to say for herself. For some pathetic reason, I thought it'd make me feel good. And did it? I asked her. No. Then quietly, she said, it made me feel bad. Well, now you know. I lay on the bed, but it's too late to take it all back. You've told the whole world. I know that. Then she hesitated. Do you want to read it? Read what? My speech. Are you off your head? I thought you might want to know what stuff From what I've heard, you pretty much told everything. Not everything, she mumbled. Sure. I didn't say anything bad about you. Thanks, very. Where did she get off? She sighed. You know why I feel so bad? I rolled my eyes at her. 'Cause it affected you, Tom, and that's the thing that dawned on me afterwards. I'm so angry at Daniel because what he did has ruined everything for me and you. As if he would have ever thought of that. Kylie, all Daniel thinks about is what he's done to us. Now, maybe. Not then. She sat up. And I didn't think about how this would be for you. I saw the way you looked, every time you thought someone was going to say something. I mean, you've hardly even spoken to me about the whole thing since we've been here. I don't know why I didn't think about that, about you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. She shrugged. Okay, speech over. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did it. Look, Kyles, people would have found out sooner or later. I relented a bit, because it was true. But I guess I would have liked to have had some say over how they found out. Then again, I don't know if I would have had the guts to do what you did. I don't know if it took guts. No brains, maybe. Nah, I shook my head. It was gutsy. Stupid, but gutsy. Has it been bad for you? No, me neither. I probably feel a bit better about it being in the open. Yeah? I'm not saying I'm happy about it, though. But you forgive me? She looked at me, my kid sister with the black makeup all over her eyes and the stupid hair that was starting to flop on one side. I didn't want to be mad with her anymore. I was sick of being mad. I wanted to get on with it. In many ways, she'd released me, pushing me into my own fear. Do you, Tommy, forgive me? She squeaked. Just a teeny bit? I forgive you that much. I held my index finger and thumb close together. And maybe if you let me eat more of your home science projects, I'll forgive you more. We laughed hard. Kylie kicked her legs in the air. Your face, she squealed, when you realised what you'd done. She wiped her eyes. Oh, that was funny. We sat there for a second, smiling. Then she sighed long and heavy. What? Tomorrow? She said. Reality was never far away. Yeah. I feel so frigging awkward around Finn. It's all awkward, she replied. You know we couldn't have stayed at the Billy. I was almost saying it to myself. It wouldn't have got any better. Probably worse. Probably. I stared at the ceiling. Kylie seemed to be staring at the floor. It's not so bad here, I offered. No, just different. Yeah, I whispered. Really different. For a few minutes we didn't talk. We didn't need words to say how we felt. Our silence did that. Finally, she spoke. So what did you see at the movies? The new Vin Diesel movie. Any good? Not bad. Hey, I just remembered something. Kylie started giggling. I heard Brendan talking on the phone. So? Guess who thinks you're cute? She sang. Is this a prank? 'Cause I'll kill you if it is. No, honest, I really did hear this. Kylie had her hands over her mouth. Chrissy Tulake reckons you're cute. Now she was pissing herself stupid. I think she meant cute looking, not, cute personality or cute. Kylie, I swear. I grabbed her and put her in a headlock. She squealed and started kicking her legs. If you're spinning me... No, swear, she shrieked through her laughter. God strike me down if I'm lying. You better not be. One way to describe Finn's 19th birthday, other than unbearable, was interesting. Everywhere guys were whizzing around in wheelchairs. Some had weird contraptions sticking out of them and strange-looking things they spoke into. Marvin from the old ward was there, and another man I recognised from when Finn first went into hospital. It was one of those days where you tried not to say the wrong thing and tried not to stare at anyone or their space-age bits and pieces. I got choked up when I saw Finn in the wheelchair. All the way in the car I'd been telling myself I was going to handle it, that it was no different to him lying in bed. But it was different, and no matter how prepared I thought I was, it bowled me over when I first saw him. I bent my head and swallowed quickly. "Good to see you, Finn," I managed, but again I had to fight the reflex to slap him on the back or hand. "Happy, birthday, mate." "Hey, Tom." He smiled, but his eyes weren't Finn's, at least not the Finn I remember. Auntie Kath made one of her famous cakes. This time it wasn't any special shape. I mean, you couldn't exactly do a motorbike, and it's not like a wheelchair cake would be any good either. So it was plain old chocolate with white swirly things. It was good, though. I ought to know I had 4 pieces. Mum made an effort. She'd put some gunk on her face, and her teeth were starting to look white again. Her clothes were baggy, and there were lines around her mouth I hadn't noticed before, but she was up. There was tension between Kath and Mum. It was like the air went icy when they were near each other. Brendan was putting in his best effort to improve the situation. I kept hearing him say things like, "Tess, I was just telling Kath about the blah blah," or "Kath, Tess was just saying how..." At one stage I nearly pulled him aside to tell him to give up, mate. It was bloody agony to watch. I volunteered to cook the sausages with Dad. At least the Barbie was away from everyone, but soon I heard the whirring of an electric chair and Finn parked himself next to me. His long-sleeved top and tracky dacks swam on him, the long ridges of bone visible under the fabric. It seemed clearer now how tall Finn had grown, probably shot up just weeks before the accident. "Did you hear St. John's lost against the St. Patrick Wimps?" Finn said to us. "What's the story there?" Dad coughed. I shrugged. "If they don't get the shit together, you Benny's boys might beat them." It was hard to tell if this was Finn having a joke or having a go. We let him talk. "That's a match I'd love to see, you and Matt playing against each other." I could feel him watching us. "When's the game?" he asked. "Benny's and St. John's." The old man started to flip the sausages, slowly, one by one, like it was the most important thing he'd ever done. We let him rave. You had to. They were the rules. "Who's the Benny's 5'8"? "A bloke called Rory. Is he any good?" I answered carefully. "He's not bad." "Wouldn't be like you and Daniel, though, would it?" Finn stared ahead, sharing that brotherly instinct and all. I breathed out slowly. "I don't know, Finn." "Did you see my birthday cards?" "No." "Got stacks of them from the Billy." I didn't say anything. "It'll take me days to read them." "I'm sure everyone misses you, mate." He turned his chair and whizzed off to bug Kylie. I heard Dad swallow. It was loud and sounded dry. I couldn't hate Finn, but at that moment it was hard not to. The debt was overwhelming. I went over to Kylie to tell her we were going. She was hugging Finn and nodding as he spoke. "That's great," she said. Her eyes were glassy with tears. "Say hi to her." "Who?" I asked. "I got a postcard from Claire." Finn looked right into my face. I felt myself take a few steps back. "She's in Rome." "Yeah?" "Then she's going to Lourdes to get some holy water for me." It was good to get out of there. There was nothing more I wanted than to be hanging out with Finn as if nothing had changed, but that wasn't the reality. It was now the great divide. If there was any doubt or question still in my mind, today had answered it. There was no point looking back because there was nothing there. Luke and Nicole took it all with them. As Brendan made the turn into Cog Hill, I felt happy to be back. We got the phone call the next morning. Daniel had hit the wall again. All I could get out of the old man was that Finn's birthday had started it off, and he'd gone downhill quickly. Mum and Dad left straight away for Wesley. The crisis centre was open to families being involved. That's why the oldies had pushed hard to get him in there. They weren't sure how long they'd be gone. There was a motel about half an hour away from the jail. They'd stay there and visit Daniel every day until they were sure he was okay.